Last time we were talking about these options here inside of the paragraph panel, and so it's applied to whatever paragraph you have selected, and so this is your left, center, and right justified. So notice it only affected this paragraph. If I select all of it, all I have to do is place the cursor in here and go Command A to select everything, and then whatever I do applies to every single continuous paragraph that is with connected to this area type. Okay, so I was saying that center and right is not recommended for large amounts of type. And then you have this option here, which is justified type, which that means that the left edge and the right edge both get a nice geometric, perfect box shape to it, if you will. The problem with this is you have to be careful. You really have to look at the results. You do not want a thing that's known as rivers, which is where the text starts to form awkward spaces between. And usually it's okay if the text is, if your column is wide enough, but generally keep in mind that over 4 inches starts to be considered too wide, and the type size is small enough. But once you get to bigger type within a narrow column, that column starts to look a little bit funny. So if I take this text box that we have with the justified type, right now it looks okay. When it gets too small here, like a narrow column width, you start to get these awful looking spaces in there. Like, look at how big the space is between order and two and make. And some of them are small, and then some of them get big. So that's a really horrible way to set type. So just be aware of what you're doing so that your type doesn't look like that. And the reason it's called a river is that it starts to form these distracting white spaces in the type that look like rivers running through your text. So let's continue looking at the options in the paragraph. The next one here is to indent. So if I put my cursor in this first paragraph here and go over to indent, and let's say I type in 20 for 20 points, that indents it. So that's similar to when you're writing, quoting someone, you'd need to do that. One that you'll use probably quite a bit more often when you're setting text is this option, which is the first line indent, and that is how you set a paragraph indent inside of Illustrator. You do not use the tab key. So if I had, like right now, these paragraphs are set up so that they have a space in between them, which is set right here. But if I zero this out, then they should come together. There still looks like there's something else in here that's causing them to be a little bit apart. You never know when you grab text off the internet what you're getting. But actually, there we go. So if we wanted indents instead, then what we would do is go Command A to select all, so that even if we had 50 paragraphs here, they would all indent, and then we would put our paragraph indent. And if you've learned this in the typography class, the most common indent is 1 to 3 M's, and an M is just simply the type size that you're using. So in this case it would be 10 points. So if we wanted a 3M indent in here, we would do Command A, select everything, come over here, and so if the 1M is 10 points, 3 of them would be 30 points, and oh, nope, I did that wrong. I put it in the wrong box, my bad. I need to put that over here, 30. And so a good way to troubleshoot when you're getting unpredictable results like this is you go up here to type, and you go show hidden characters, turn that on, and then when you zoom in you'll see anything that's in the text. So this right here lets me know that there is a return in here. So let me get rid of that for a second. just delete that out. Now I do an actual return because that was a soft return, which means that whoever did that just simply, um, well, you hold down the shift key instead. Well, let me just scan through here and see if there's anything else getting in our way. Okay, so now if we go in here and put our 30 points, which at 10 is 2M indent, actually a better way would be just go in here, Command A, select all, do it all at once, put 30, hit the tab key, so now I have the indent on both. Generally we do not indent the first paragraph, so I would just take that out for that paragraph, hit return, so now that's working better. Probably not the best idea to do this with internet type, but anyway, so now you know how to turn on the hidden characters, and let's just talk about some of the different characters. So if I just go in between here, and let's say there's supposed to be a new paragraph right here after, I don't know, the word letters, right? I'm just going to click right here, hit the return key. So you can see for that, you get this type of return. If I just wanted it to start on a new line but not tell the computer that it is a new paragraph, then I hold down the shift key and hit return, and I get that kind of an indent. You can also see that just simple spaces are a dot, and that's about all I know on there, I guess. Okay, and then if instead of indenting we wanted to go with the space before paragraphs, I would do Command A, select all of these, and then in here, and generally I would enter in the amount of my leading, and I'm not sure what that is right now, so I'll just put 20 in there, hit tab, and now you can see I get this space in here, and then we would want to get rid of the first line indent, so I want to make sure I put a 0 in there because it's considered redundant to do both things, and that's obviously way too much, the 20. And notice that it didn't put a space before this one, so it's smart enough to know not to do that for the first paragraph because that could screw up your alignments. And let's just make this look better. If I put the cursor in here, I can see that the font size is 10, the leading is 12, which that's the default, so I'll select all. I'll change this to 13 so I get just a little bit more leading. Then I can go back in here and change this to 13 as well, so now it just has one skipped line in there. So that's the outward stuff except for the hyphenation box, and so checking hyphenation can give you a little bit better alignments in your text. However, it can get a little bit ugly if there's too much hyphenation going on. Let me do Command Alt, select that, turn on hyphenation. It looks like we have enough space in here, but as the paragraph starts to get narrower, then it may be necessary for it to start putting some hyphens in there. Yeah. There's one there. But you can control that, the amount that you get, and that's one of the options that you have in here. So you can see that you can go with just minimal amount of options, just like with the character palette. But let's talk about hyphenation first, since we were just talking about this. This is a general settings that I recommend, is that it's okay to hyphenate after 2 words, but keep at least 3 on the end before you go over. And then hyphenation limit, keep that at 0. That way you'll never get 2 hyphens, or actually 1, but never more than 1. Means that you only get 1 hyphen in a row. You usually don't have to worry about this with these settings. And then you have the choice of hyphenating capitalized words. Some people say that you shouldn't do that. I'm not so bad either way on that one. And with this little bit of text we have, even with me clicking preview in here, we didn't get a whole lot of change. Let's OK out of there. Let's look at these other options. And you have what's known as Roman hanging punctuation. And this is when you have the case of a quote starting right at the edge of your type, it can make the type look almost like it has a paragraph indent in here. So a good technique is to turn that on. So I'm going to select all of my text, go in here, and I'm going to turn this on, and now that little tiny quotation mark comes out and it makes the text look neater because it's so insignificant that it being further over to the left actually helps. And then the justification option, so when you are justifying your text like we have here where we have a left and a right edge to them, you can call up certain options here. So let's take a look at them. The word spacing, so it'll go down as low as 80% of the desired or up to 33% more. So that's why you end up with these spacing issues here. Generally, this is about as good as you can get. You could try to play around with it a little bit. You can actually add letter spacing. I would use this very sparingly, but if you're really trying to push it and you just ended up with these ugly word spacings, you could try to put a little bit of letter spacings. That would loosen up and tighten up some words. It's not a great idea, but then neither is justifying, narrow columns of text. Then you have glyph scaling, which is an absolute no-no. That would take and squish like maybe this letter T so that you could make up for a smaller or a bigger gap in there. So don't monkey around with that. And then this is what your leading is automatically set to, the 120%. I would probably, I guess you could up this a little bit, wouldn't hurt, but really you should be changing that manually every single time. And okay, so we're good there. Oh, and just for thoroughness, I really only talked about these first four options. These last ones, avoid. This one just makes no sense. Centering the last word, or the last line. Let's see what else we have here. Then we have this, which brings it over to the right, makes no sense. And then we have this most horrible option, which tries to make everything space out. So again, these really, as a designer, you're going to be using align left, and you're going to be using justify with the last line justified to the left. Okay, and then you have this thing here, which is by default it's set to Adobe Single Line Composer. The Every Line Composer is a better option because what it does is it goes through and it looks not just one line at a time for what's the best spacing I can get, but it looks back and says, oh, well, these are a little bit close together and this is a little bit far apart. What would happen if I took this word and brought it down? And it does all that kind of stuff for you. So that's really all you need to know there. So our next option will be called creating text threads. And when you have a large amount of text like we have here, and there's not room for all of it to show up, you get a little visual indication, which is this thing right here. And that's it's an overflow. So you can think of this as like a tank of water. This is letting you know that there's more water, I guess, willing than is in here than can be held, so it can overflow. So if I click on this, and notice I'm clicking on it with the selection tool, not with the text tool. That's important. But now notice how my text or my selection tool has changed. I get this a loaded text icon. So now I can click and I can drag and create another line of text, and they automatically connect with each other. So this overflow went to this one. And now I have yet another one here, so I could create another one. Now if you're setting just a little bit of text in Illustrator, it's fine. Otherwise the program of choice would be InDesign. But one thing you should know just as a designer, that when you have two columns of text on the same page, they either need to be clearly different in size, which can be awkward unless you have enough text and enough repetition throughout your document, or they need to be exactly the same size. So how would we know that? Well, remember before we had this option up here of going to type and going to the area type options, and that'll tell us the exact width of this box. So if I just copied this, Command C, go OK,